Hi everyone. I have some very big news that I'm very excited to share with y'all today. And it is not about my haircut, even though this morning my hair was down to here and I just got it all chopped off. Haven't even shown anyone yet. But anyways, that's not what I'm excited to share about. What I'm excited to talk to you guys about today is the launching of my new organization, All Life is Precious. My name is Byron Peck. This is an organization that I'm very passionate about, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. But first, I want to make note that either above or below this video, depending on which platform you're watching it on, there's going to be several links to our social media. I cannot tell you how much it means when you add and follow each of those links because this organization aims to help so many lives. So the more we grow, the more we're going to be able to help. Okay, so at All Life is Precious, we believe that all life is precious, that all life matters, and that all life has meaning. Our overall mission statement is very broad. It's simply to improve the quality of life for all living beings on Earth. Okay, so with that said, our primary goal as of right now, and stay with me on this because I know how it's going to sound because I've been on the other side, but it is so important that you have an open mind to what I'm about to say because there are literally billions of lives at stake. Our current focus right now is to help spread awareness of animal welfare, primarily by recommending that we remove meat from our plates. If I haven't already lost everyone watching, please hear me out because I'm sure you've heard the arguments before and are tired of this vegan movement trying to push their beliefs on everyone else. But I'm not speaking for myself or a bunch of vegans. I am speaking for the billions of lives who don't get to have a voice, who are living and dying in the most unimaginable conditions, who we've just forgotten about. So please give me just a moment to share this perspective. So this topic of veganism really comes down to just one thing. It really just comes down to whether or not you see animals as victims. And if so, what are you willing to do to help save those victims? Now, I could show you countless videos of how these animals have been victims of terrible, terrible things, but I know you'd rather not see them. Most of us would rather look away so that we're not inconvenienced by guilt when it comes time for our meals. But if it's something that bothers us so much, why are we not doing something about it? Shouldn't we be stopping the harm and not the videos? So when we talk about veganism, the first thing I want for people to understand is that it is not about a diet. It's not about food. It is about a choice to not harm animals for unnecessary reasons. That includes leather, fur, certain animal testing, and things like that. It is about whether or not it is okay to take a life when it is not necessary to do so. And it is a fact that we do not need meat to survive, and therefore making it unnecessary. In contemporary society, we have more than enough options for alternatives. Burgers that bleed just like real beef. That means that meat is not for survival nor nutrition, which I'm not going to go over because all the facts are there from nutritionists. So meat is for one thing and one thing only: enjoyment. It is for our taste buds and taste buds alone. So what we must ask ourselves is one question. Are our taste buds, during a 10-minute meal that we're going to forget about seconds after it's over, worth the rest of an animal's entire life? I understand putting your life over the life of an animal. That makes sense to me. But unless you're stranded in the wilderness, that's probably not going to have to be the case. If it comes down to it, yes, choose your life over an animal's every time. But I do not understand choosing taste buds over another's life. Think about this. What do we lose? Simply choosing a different selection to put on our plates, which, as I mentioned, is not all that different with today's alternatives. That's all that has to change for us. But what do they have to lose? everything, the rest of their lives, and enslavement up until that point, typically in horrendous conditions. Do these beings really deserve that? Do they not deserve the right to be alive and free? What makes a pig worth less than a dog? Can you name one specific trait of that pig that makes the value of its life worth less? I've been told that they're actually smarter than dogs. I don't know, but regardless, pigs and cows are just as capable of loving and being loved. I've seen it. They're just as playful and cuddly when given the chance to be. Could you kill the cow yourself? Could you end its life for your taste buds? I'm sure some of you could and would, but if not, if you could not be the one to pull the knife across the cow's throat, then is it really okay to pay somebody else to do it? Isn't it still wrong to hire a hitman? See, we become so disconnected from what happens on the other side of the wall and how we get our food that it doesn't really bother us. We buy meat and milk and cheese with pictures of cows on the packages to further disconnect us from reality and what buying that product means. When you spend money on meat, you're creating demand for that product and saying, please produce more. In other words, please kill more. The thing is that your money is your vote, and I'm asking that we please stop voting for death. You could say it's just an animal, but that right there is the exact point where we need to shift our way of thinking. Just an animal. We think nothing of it because current tradition and culture dictate that it's not a big deal. It's a way of life, the way it's always been, the food chain, the circle of life. But going in circles is never good. We need to move forward, not round and round. Not all that long ago, tradition and culture dictated that it was perfectly acceptable for a human to own another human because their skin was a different color. Slave owners would say, it's just a Negro. Now, I am not comparing the two at all. I'm simply showing how sometimes the way that things are really are not the way that they should be. Slavery didn't seem like a big deal to them back then because that's just the way it was. But thank God there were people who spoke up about how terribly wrong and unjust it was. Unfortunately, animals can't do that. They can't speak up for themselves. So when you hear a vegan going on and on about not killing animals, they are speaking up for those without a voice. They couldn't care less what's on your plate as long as no one was murdered. Martin Luther King said, there comes a time when silence is betrayal. That is why we speak up. That's why I'm doing all of this, even though I know it doesn't want to be heard, and even though I know it could have negative effects on the relationships I have with the people around me. We just want the animals who are currently sentenced to death row to know that we are fighting for them so that they can one day know what peace and love feel like instead of Holocaust. We as a society have overcome terrible social injustices in the past, and we can do it again. And just think how many human lives we would save by not only reducing the amount of meat-caused heart diseases, but also by teaching our children the value of life. When they are brought up to know that it's wrong to harm any living being, then perhaps there will be less violence against each other in the world. And if you want to talk about solving world hunger, there's more food and protein used in the feeding of livestock than the amount of food and protein that livestock yields by a very wide margin. Another argument is that in the Bible it says animals were put here for us and that it's okay to use their flesh. I don't want to dive deep into this because I want to be respectful of everyone's beliefs. But I will say that there are other things in the Old Testament that were deemed acceptable back then, and yet they've been modified or reinterpreted to fit modern morals. And if God said that we could use animals, do you think he had mass breeding through artificial insemination in mind? I also think that the last time we got an update from God, we didn't have the alternative options that we have today. So if we no longer have a need to kill them, would he still want us to take away the precious lives that he's created? Do you think he preferred that we show them love and compassion or kill them? If he intended for them to be enslaved and slaughtered and mutilated, why would he give them the ability to feel emotional and physical pain? I don't know, but all I can say is that if you take one step inside a slaughterhouse, you'll know that there is no way that that is what a benevolent, loving God would have had in mind. The most common thing that I hear is, okay, listen, why can't you just have your opinions and I have mine? Now that makes perfect sense to me, and trust me, I'm not one to force my opinions or beliefs on anyone else. We should celebrate our differences instead of being divided. The problem is that there are victims involved, which changes everything. And remember, it's most important in situations like these to look at things from the victim's perspective. Not my perspective, not yours, but from the victims. We need to see this through their eyes. And these beautiful beings do not want to die. But yet they've been given a life sentence just for the crime of not being born human or dog. That's what they did to deserve imprisonment and death rather than compassion? Because they're just an animal? You could say, listen, if that's how you feel about animals, you don't have to eat meat. You can stop eating them. But why do you want to take away our meat and our rights and freedoms? The same thing could have been said about slavery. If that's how you feel about slaves, then you don't have to own one. But don't take away our slaves and our rights. See, we don't want to take away your freedoms or your rights. We just want to make sure that everyone is able to enjoy those same basic freedoms and rights that you have, like the right to be alive and be free from harm. We as a society need to progress. We need to start having this conversation. We need compassion. One thing that I hear people say all the time is, I love animals, but yet we consume them on our plates. We create demand for their death. I'm so sorry, but that is not love. That's not what love is. So maybe you love pets, but if you truly love and care about animals, their corpses would not be on your plates, because that's not what we do to those that we care about. If you love them, you will help set them free and stop the harm. You won't just support it in your thoughts, you'll support it with your actions, and stop creating demand asking slaughterhouses to maintain production. I'm not saying these things to make you feel bad, I'm saying them to spark a change, to shine a light on the ones who have truly been left in the dark without hope. And don't tell me that it's too hard. Don't tell me that you can't. As an avid bacon and steak lover for most of my life, if I can do it, so can you. This isn't about what we want to do or what we think we can do. This is about what we have to do, because it's what's right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know it's been quite a bit to take in, especially if you've made it all the way to the end. But please don't forget to follow those social media links and just give this a little bit of thought, because they really are counting on us. Let's change the world.